Wow, it has been so long since the last video, and I'm so sorry about that. But I've been very busy working on another Roblox game with my brother that we've, still been working on, and I think that I put a lot of time and effort to the point where we are at the point where we can start making abilities for our races. Now, these abilities can be anything we want it to be, but I want them to be, pretty special, and I want them to be advanced, not just something cheap. So what I had in mind was having an ability that can track a player's movement. So we can see that this player right here is moving. Now imagine you just have a fireball that shoots right where you're pointing at, but he moves out of the way. Well, he's not going to get damaged, and I don't like that. Unless you have some radius circle that, has an explosion range, and if you're in that area, you're going to get damaged. Now I could do that, and I can do that, and I have done that. I don't like that though. I want the move to be going to that person. It just makes it feel that much harder and that much more, PvP aspect-ish. So right now I have fireballs, and I think I have about 3 or 4 that shoots out at a Bezier curve that comes outwards and then back into the point where your mouse is pointing. So we'll see that when I do point right here at the base plate, you'll see that those 3 have a bit of a Bezier curve. It comes out and then reaches back in. Okay, now that was just pointing at a distance that I can shoot at, but now imagine I'm shooting too far away, say way down there. Well, it's not going to go all the way down there. Instead, it's just going to go to the max distance I have set, which is 80. That's perfectly fine. So we're at 80. So now you saw that I was pointing at the base plate way down there, but I can't get there. Okay, now imagine you're not pointing at a target anymore. It's not a base plate, it's not a model, it's not a part, it's not a humanoid, it's nothing. It's just the air. Well, I also had that, and it'll just go all the way to your max distance and to where your mouse is pointing perfectly, which is amazing. I mean, wow, I just could not find anything on the internet to help me do this. It's just amazing. So I had to go ahead and figure this out myself, and I think that I did a really good job at simplifying it down to what I need and what I just want. So we can hop right back into that, and just another showcase real quick. We can see that if I shoot it at the model, it damages them perfectly, smoothly, so nice. And then we'll see this model, when he moves, we're going to shoot it, and you're going to see that it tracks him. Okay, it didn't seem like it tracked him that well, just because, but we'll try again. Wow, I missed. Okay. Obviously, you have to have your mouse on the target, which is a bit hard sometimes. Wow, I'm terrible. There we go, and it tracks him. Boom. Perfectly done. Smooth and everything. Alright. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the code, because I think that everybody should know this. I mean, I don't really see that many people do it in games, and I think it's just something great to know in general. So let's get to that. Alright, so right up here, first of all, you can see that we have the client, the server, and the module. Now the module in here is just going to be things that we want. So we can change the hotkey from X to 3 if I wanted to. I can change the fireball speed from 40 to 100 if I wanted it faster. I can make the damage from the explosion even bigger, although I don't use the explosion. I can make the explosion range even bigger. I can make the max fireball range from 80, which is what we had before, and I can make it bigger, smaller, whatever I'd like. The amount of offset they have for when they spawn, and then the amount that spawns. So I could set it from a minimum of 3 random, and I have a random number that picks between 3 and whatever I pick, or 1 if I change this to 1 and another number, and I can spawn that many, or a random number between those numbers, that many fireballs. I just wanted 3, keep it simple, you don't need a crazy amount. And then this one is just the delay between making the fireball from its min to its max. And then the cooldown, of course, is just 2.5. You can make it whatever you'd like. Originally it was 5. I just put it to 2.5 to make it easier. So that's all you're going to see from the configuration module. So let's just close that out real quick. So we're starting off with the local script, because obviously how are you going to send an input to know that you're firing a fireball? Well, let's just go through this. I have everything marked down so that way we can do it step by step with you guys. Alright, so obviously we gotta wait 5. That's just me, because I don't like to do the wait for child's humanoid or the character, stuff like that. So I just wait a couple seconds for the character to spawn in, and then we find the player and all that. So we get the player from the local player, we get the replicated storage, and then we go down. But this is our remote event. Now, our remote event I just called RE, and you can get it from the replicated storage and then remote event, which is just called remote event. Then we get our server variables, which is going to be your configuration module right here, and then it's going to be your context action service, and then you're going to have your get mouse and your camera from the player. Alright, and then we're also going to get the player variables, which you're going to get your character right here, your humanoid, and then you're going to get your humanoid root part. From there we get our MISC variables. This one is just going to be the client debounds, because you can't, we don't want you to spam a move, right? That would just be kind of broken. Right here we're going to see a function called raycast. That's just going to return what it's found, or where its endpoint ends up when we call the function for raycast. But right down here you're going to see that we have a handle input. This is where we're going to get our input from. And down here you'll see that we bind the action of fireball to handle input, and then set to true, and then config hotkey. And that hotkey is obviously right in here. Hotkey is equal to X, right? So now it knows that X is for handle input, so whenever we press X, you're going to fire this. Alright, cool. And then it also fires fireball, so if we get if action name is not equal to fireball, or input state isn't at its end, or the client debounce isn't false yet, then we're not going to do anything further. However, if we do have fireball and our input state isn't at the end, or is at the end, we haven't done anything with it, and the client debounce is false, then we're going to continue on. From there we get the input object.keycode, which is just going to be from the config, which is X, which is what we have it. We're going to call our debounce to true, that way we can't press it again. And then this is where we start setting up our raycast variables. So we're going to call max distance is going to equal to our config.max fireball range, which you're going to see right over here. Max fireball range is 80, so we made the max distance equal to that. Ignore list is going to be your character, because you obviously don't want it to hit your character. You can put anything else you want in here if you have like a squad system or something like that. Then you're going to have your unit ray is going to equal from your camera, screen point to ray, your mouse.x and your mouse.y. We're able to get that because we got the mouse from your player up here. So we know the mouse.x and the mouse.y, and we can call it our unit ray, and then we create the origin from the origin, and then the direction with direction, and then we create an instance hit point is equal to our raycast function, and we pass in the origin, the direction, the max distance it can go to, and the ignore list. And then from there it's going to return whatever it finds or whatever it gets right here. So if it finds a humanoid or doesn't find anything, it's going to give us a point and or target. And then right down here we're going to see that we fire server so that we can start using the ability. We fire the remote event, and we give it mouse.hit, which is the 3D world space, the mouse.target, which is what it's looking at or on, and then hit point, which is from the raycast return. And then as that's all being fired, we then wait for the cooldown, which is just 2.5, and then we turn the client debounce back to false, which means we can then use this again. Alright, so now that we're finished looking at this, we're going to go to Fireball server, because we just fired this to the server, so we're going to look at that. Alright, so the first thing you're going to notice is that we have a function up here. We're not going to look at this function just yet, because that doesn't have anything to do, but let's look at it over here. We got our game variables, which is our replicated storage, remote event as always, and then our config for our module, and then we have MISC variables of goal, distance, and bool humanoid. Alright, so we're going to go all the way down to our remote event. So right here you can see that we passed in the player, the mouse hit, the target, and the hit point that we returned from the raycast. Alright, so we're going to call our player, our character, we get from the player.character, and then we see if character and character.humanoid.health is greater than 0, so he's not dead, we can use this move. So we call start is equal to character.humanoid.root.part.position. So that's going to be where our move starts, from us, from our humanoid root position. And then we're going to see if target, which means if there is a target, if there is an object. If there isn't, then this doesn't work. But if there is an object, then we're going to say if the target finds a humanoid root part. So if the target.parent finds a humanoid root part, because when we look at a model, you'll get the target, and the target is most likely going to be a part. So the head, the arm, the right hand, the left hand, the leg, the torso. And if you do dot parent, that brings you to the character. And then you can take that and say find first child humanoid root part, as everybody has a humanoid root part. If it does, then we're going to be able to take our goal and equal it to the target dot parent humanoid root part. And then we're going to find the distance between the start and our goal dot position. Now we say goal dot position here because we didn't specify position up here. And I want to make this clear because this is a humanoid, and then the else is going to go over anything that isn't a humanoid, which we don't want. Or, you know, anything that isn't a humanoid, we won't have this. It'll be different. The goal is going to be different. So this is, you're going to get your position, and then you do dot magnitude. That way you can get a number instead of a vector 3. And then you say, okay, if the distance or magnitude is greater than the config.max fireball range, and we know that the max fireball range is 80, and it is greater, then goal is going to be equal to hit point, which is remember the raycast that we sent. And if it doesn't find anything, it'll just do, it'll make its length 80, and then wherever that endpoint ends is going to give us our coordinates for our x, y, z. After that, we set bool humanoid to true, because guess what? We did find a humanoid, so we should make sure that we know it's a humanoid. If it isn't a humanoid, if target isn't a humanoid, then we're gonna set goal to our mouse hit dot position, and then we're gonna find the distance just like last time, dot magnitude, and then if the distance or magnitude is greater than the fireball range, goal is equal to hit point, just like we said before. Your raycast from the local, if it doesn't find anything or it just ends up all the way to 80, it'll give us that coordinate. That way we know that we were too far from our max range. And then we're going to set bool to false. Now that's if we end up with a target that isn't humanoid, and then the true is set if we do end up with a humanoid. Now if the target is just air, because remember we said if target, else if it's not anything, if it's just straight air, then we're going to do the same thing. Just set goal equal to mouse hit dot position, which is the 3D world space vector, and then you're going to take the magnitude of or slash distance is going to be start minus goal dot magnitude, and then magnitude or distance is greater than config, which it could be or could not be. If it is, then the goal is going to be equal to hit point because it's too far out of our range. If it isn't, no problems. Set the bool humanoid to false because we are not a bool. We are not a humanoid. All right. Now that we finished with that, we can go all the way right here, and we're going to start making our fireballs. Now this is just randomizing the amount of fireballs that we have. So I have mine set to 3 and 3. So no matter what, I'm always going to get 3 fireballs. But I could make the minimum and the maximum different numbers and make it so I could have like 1 and 7. And then I would be able to get a random number between 1 and 7. And between that random number, I get that many fireballs made. Now I think it's just too much to have more than 3, and because I have the Bezier curve, which we can get rid of if we would like to make it just 1, you do the Bezier curve so you can see multiple fireballs come out at the same time, which is what we're doing, which is why it works so nicely. So I think really I just need 3. And then we take a for loop and we say I is equal to 1 compared to the number of fireballs that we have, which is, you know, whatever that random number was. And we use a task.spawn. Now the cool thing about a task.spawn is that it will take multiple function requests without waiting for another one to finish. So it allows us to do multiple things at the same time practically. So we're gonna do create a hitbox instance, and we created a part, and then we say, well, remember that bool humanoid that we had up there? Well, if it's true, then we're gonna fire ability of start, goal, and character. Remember now goal is always gonna be different between if it's a humanoid and if it's not a humanoid. Goal here represents a humanoid root part of the target, and goal down here represents a vector 3. Right here you can see it, vector 3, and this one represents a humanoid root part. You can't really see it because it expects a vector 3, but yeah. So we pass in a humanoid root part there, and then we say right here, which is what we're going to need to see, but we can look at that right afterwards. We say distance is equal to the start minus goal dot position. Now we say dot position because remember, goal is equal to goal right up here. goal is equal to target.parent find first child humanoid root part, but we didn't specify the position of the humanoid root part. So we have to say it ourselves. So we say dot position here, and then we get the magnitude to make it a number, and then we say the travel time is equal to the distance that we just made divided by the config.fireball speed, which we have in here, which is 40. We can make it whatever we like, but divided by that speed. Alright, and then we wait that travel time, because by the time this is done, your fireball should have already made it to your target. And then once that's finished, you're going to create you're gonna set your properties. So your shape is gonna be a cylinder, which is what we just created. It could be a box or anything you like. And then we did anchor it as true so it doesn't fall through the world. Can collide is false so it doesn't glitch out the players. Transparency is 0 so you don't see it. The orientation is over by 90. That way we can correctly use the XYZ without having to make it, negative X, Y's, and Z's. And then we make the size equal to our explosion range, which we have in here, which is just 10. So it's going to be a 10 by 10 by 10. So we make the size, and then we set the parent equal to the workspace, and then the position equal to the goal position. Alright, now that we fired the ability, we're going to go into our function up here, and we see that we have start, goal, and character. Now, again, we use a task spawn function. That way we can get multiple of those fireballs through simultaneously practically. And then we have that bool humanoid again saying if it's true, which means we do have a humanoid we're looking at, your character shooting, which is going to be equal to your character because you're the one firing the ball. P0 is going to be equal to your start position. P2 is going to be equal to your goal. So right now we have P2 is equal to a humanoid root part. And then we make the distance equal to P0 or your start minus your humanoid root part dot position, because remember we have to specify that, dot magnitude to get the distance, and then travel time is equal to distance divided by fireball speed again. And then we set these randomizations. Now these randomizations are just going to be for where we want the randomized curve to be, or like how big we want the curve to be from the X, Y, and Z position. Now you can see that I changed it a bit here for the Y because I don't want the Y to go below the surface, so I just made it 0.5 or 1 and then made this halfway in between just like the rest. Alright, and then once that's all randomized and you get your X, Y, and Z, we're going to take P1 is equal to your, remember P0 is your start, so we're going to take P1 is going to be equal to your start, lerp, and then take your goal position and place your P1 halfway between P2 and P0. Okay, and now what this does is this sets where our curve, like the peak of our curve is going to be. So that's how we get our Bezier curve. Alright, and then we start creating we take the fireball from our replicated storage. We set the can collide to false because we don't want it to collide with anything. We set the true so it doesn't fall through the world as we're using it. And then it's parent to the workspace. Alright, and then we're going to create increments. And the increments are important, very important, because you're going to have the travel time divided by the amount of time to the server for a tick. And what that's going to do is we're going to use a for loop. And between each time it loops, it's going to increment until it's going to do 1, and then it's going to be 2, and then 3, and so on until it finally reaches our increment, which is equal to travel time divided by our tick. And then we do these guys, which is just to get your curved position. And then once you finally make it to the curve, you set your position, the curve position, and then you just continuously do this until you finally reach your end goal. And your end goal is supposed to be P2 position right here. So this is your end goal. Now, if you don't want your Bezier curve and you want a simplified version where it goes straight to the target, then you're just going to use local position is equal to P0, which is your start, lerp to P2, and P2 is your end goal, dot position, I divided by increments, and then do new fireball dot position is equal to position, and that'll just slowly increment your fireball to the player. So this is very important. This right here is what's helping us update our position every few ticks. Like every tick, it's updating its position. So it's always updating the target's position too. So it's always gonna find that target no matter what. And then at the end, once it reaches its final increment, you're gonna destroy the fireball. Now, remember we had up here that it was true. Well, if it's not true, then we're gonna do the same thing, except your goal isn't a humanoid anymore. It's a vector, because remember we don't have anything. So distance, we do the exact same thing. The only thing that's changed is your P2 isn't a humanoid anymore, it's a vector, so you don't have to keep saying dot position. See right here, we just say P2, because it's already a vector. And then we go through, do everything like we always do, and it's the exact same thing. The only thing that changed was the fact that it's not a humanoid anymore, it's a position in the world space. And you do the exact same thing. Alright, so now that we went through that, we know what the fire ability does. So now we can go to the else statement. And remember, up here we were at the if bool is equal to true, and then we did all that. Well, if it's not true, then we're just going to create fire ability start, and then goal is equal to our vector position, and then we send it for that else statement in there. And we do the same thing. Create our distance, our travel time, our task.wait, and then the hitbox. Alright, once that's finished, we're just going to call connection equal to hitbox.touched, and then get parts is equal to hitbox get touching parts. Now it's going to have everything that's touching the hitbox, and then we're going to disconnect our connection and then destroy the hitbox immediately. So we did all this in just a few milliseconds. So this all happened in a few milliseconds, this right here. And then we create our damaged characters and say for I in parts, for I part in pairs parts do, and what that does is it goes through everything inside of parts. So every part, we say if part right here dot parent, just like we did with the target, has a humanoid and it's not a part of the damaged characters table part.parent, then we're gonna set it equal to true and then damage that player. That way we know that they have already been damaged and they won't be damaged again if it finds them. And we damage them. And that's it. That's quite literally it. The most important thing from that whole thing that we needed to have was this right here. If I can find it. This right here. The increment in the for loop. Because this allows us to track the enemy. And I think it's a pretty short script. It's just a lot of if-else statements based off of whether it's a character or air or a part that doesn't have a humanoid. But in the end, you'll end up with something like this, where this person is moving, and you shoot it, and it'll find them and damage them. And then you can have it in the air, and it'll just go straight to that point, up to 80, because that's what we have our max range to be. It can hurt somebody standing still, no problem. It can go to this part right here, and disappear, and that's it. And then we can make it go to the floor there, or we can make it follow this person and damage them. So there you go, guys. I thought I would really share this with you guys because it took so long to figure this out without any help. I mean, seriously. So in the end, guys, thank you for watching this if you did stay this long, and please share this because I am sure that the more games that use this will just make Roblox so much better. I mean, just imagine if we can make Roblox games so much better. That would just be a dream come true, honestly. Just like how games never stay the same over the years, they're always going to change and become better and better. That's what I want Roblox platform to be. I want it to get even better than it is now. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little lesson. I hope you guys enjoyed the fireballs and the tracking. And yeah, don't be afraid to check out our Discord channel for the Unknown Phoenix official page, or that's our Roblox studio group. And then also our game, which is called Echoes of Tenebracia, which you can find inside the group. So yeah, thank you guys for joining, and I hope you share this with your friends and everybody else who's a creator. Thank you.